No one under 18 disclaimer. This story contains mature themes, including emotional vulnerability, physical intimacy, and infidelity. It is a fictional narrative inspired by real human experiences, intended for an adult audience, 18 plus. The purpose of this story is to explore the emotional complexities of relationships, boundaries, and choices. Reader discretion is advised. Emily had always thought her life was stable, perhaps not magical, but certainly comfortable. At 32, she was married to David, a man everyone admired. Successful, handsome, respected. Their suburban home looked like a picture out of a catalog: white picket fence, flower beds, cozy lights. But inside, Emily's heart echoed with a silence only neglected love could create. David had changed over the years. Work had swallowed him whole: meetings, deadlines, overseas calls at odd hours. Emily understood his dedication. She supported it. But somewhere along the way, his attention had stopped including her. Intimacy turned mechanical, affection reduced to quick kisses, and conversations were always interrupted by his phone buzzing or his tired sighs. Emily never thought she would feel lonely in a marriage. But she did. Then Ryan arrived. David's younger cousin, Ryan, was 28, charming, laid back, and had a smile that disarmed everyone. He had just moved to their city for a new job and needed a place to stay until he found his own apartment. David offered their guest room without asking her, but Emily didn't mind. She could use the company. Ryan blended in easily. He was polite, helpful, and surprisingly observant. He noticed things like how Emily liked her tea slightly sweet but not too strong, how she hummed old love songs when she cleaned, how her shoulders slumped when David canceled another dinner. And he asked questions, real ones. Not the empty, "How was your day?" type, but ones that made her feel like she mattered. One evening, Emily sat alone in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, staring blankly at the TV. David had texted last minute that he'd be late again. Something about a client dinner. She didn't even feel disappointed anymore. Just numb. Ryan walked in, holding 2 mugs. "I made hot chocolate. Thought you might want some company." She smiled weakly. "You read my mind." They sat together, the movie on in the background. Something light, romantic comedy, she thought. But she couldn't focus. It had been so long since someone sat with her like this. No distractions. No phone. Just presence. Ryan laughed at something in the movie and looked at her. "You have a beautiful laugh, you know that?" She looked at him, caught off guard. No one had complimented her like that in years. "Thanks," she said quietly. The moment passed, innocent on the surface. But inside Emily, something stirred, a whisper of warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. She brushed it off. "It's just kindness," she told herself. But it wasn't. It was the beginning of something that would change everything. Days passed, but that small, seemingly innocent evening stayed fresh in Emily's mind. It wasn't the movie. Not the hot chocolate. It was the way Ryan had looked at her, like she wasn't invisible. Like she mattered. She told herself not to read into it. He was David's cousin, after all. Younger. Just being friendly. Still, when she heard his footsteps in the hallway, her pulse quickened. When he called her name from the kitchen, her lips curled into a smile without her permission. One afternoon, while David was away at a conference, Emily decided to cook something special for herself. She hadn't done that in a while. She pulled out ingredients, humming softly as the aroma of sautéing garlic filled the house. Ryan stepped in. "That smells amazing." "I'm making pasta," she replied. "Want some?" "Only if I can help," he said, flashing that disarming smile. They cooked together, their movements surprisingly in sync. They bumped elbows, laughed at the mess they made, and shared stories about childhood, families, and regrets. Ryan told her about his failed engagement, how he moved to escape the past. Emily, in turn, opened up about the early days of her marriage, how passionate it had once been, and how distant it had now become. "It's like living with a roommate sometimes," she admitted. "One I used to be in love with." Ryan's eyes softened. "That sounds lonely." She blinked back the sting behind her eyes. "It is." After dinner, they sat in the living room, their plates empty, the wine bottle half full. Ryan looked over at her. Emily, I hope you don't think I'm overstepping, but you deserve more than this. You deserve to be seen. Her breath caught in her throat. No one had said anything like that to her in years. She turned away, masking her face. It's not that simple. I know, he said quietly. The next evening, it rained. David texted again. Client dinner ran long. Don't wait up. Emily barely reacted. She made tea, sat on the couch, and flipped through the channels. Ryan entered with a blanket. Movie night again? She nodded. They sat side by side. This time, even closer. The rain tapped against the windows, the lights were dimmed, and the movie played, forgotten, in the background. As the scenes changed on screen, Emily felt the weight of Ryan's presence beside her, not heavy, but warm. She could smell his cologne, hear his breathing. She didn't move. Halfway through the film, their fingers brushed. Not accidentally this time. Ryan didn't pull away. Neither did she. Her hand trembled slightly, but she didn't let go. When she finally turned to look at him, she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen in a long time, not lust, but longing. Longing that mirrored her own. Her voice was barely above a whisper. This is wrong. I know, he said, his voice low. But does it feel wrong? Emily didn't answer. And in that silence, the boundary between right and wrong began to blur. The next few seconds felt like an eternity. Emily's hand was still in Ryan's. Their fingers had locked delicately, purposefully. The movie continued playing, sound filling the room like background noise, but her heart pounded louder than anything on the screen. She could feel the heat rising to her cheeks, her breath caught between panic and desire. This wasn't just a moment, it was the moment. The kind of split second that splits your life in two, before and after. Ryan's thumb brushed gently across the top of her hand. The touch was soft, tender, and it made her whole body tense. I should go to bed, she whispered, but made no move to get up. You don't have to, Ryan said. We're just watching a movie. But they both knew they weren't. The distance between them was melting by the second. Their bodies hadn't fully shifted, but their energy had. Emily could feel the pull, the silent, undeniable magnetism drawing them together. Then Ryan's hand moved. Slowly, like asking permission without words, he placed it on her arm, just above the elbow. His fingers lingered there, warm and steady. She turned to look at him, heart thudding, lips parted slightly as if she were about to say something. Anything. But no words came out. His eyes scanned her face, searching. Waiting. Asking. And then, he leaned in. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. His forehead gently touched hers, his breath brushing her lips. Emily's eyes fluttered closed. She could have pulled away. She should have. But she didn't. Her body betrayed her loneliness, her exhaustion, her starving heart. All the years of being looked through and brushed aside had led to this fragile, firelit second. And then it happened. Ryan kissed her. Softly. Slowly. Carefully. Like he was afraid she might shatter. At first, her lips stayed still, frozen by guilt and confusion. But then she kissed him back, hesitantly at first, then with something deeper. A longing that had waited too long to be acknowledged. Her hand touched his face. His arm wrapped gently around her waist. Time stopped. The kiss deepened, more urgent now. Her breath quickened, fingers curling into his shirt. It wasn't just physical. It was emotional. It was everything she hadn't felt in years. But just as quickly as it started, it ended. Emily pulled back suddenly, as if waking from a dream. She stood up, heart racing, lips tingling, breath shallow. We can't, she gasped, taking a step back. This can't happen. I'm married. You're David's cousin. Ryan stood too, regret in his eyes. I didn't mean to, Emily, I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. She turned away, wiping her lips, feeling the weight of what had just occurred pressed down on her chest like 1,000 bricks. You should go to bed, she said, her voice cracking. I need to be alone. He didn't argue. He walked away slowly, head low, leaving her standing in the quiet room, wrapped in guilt, confusion, and the terrifying truth that everything had changed. Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay on her side, staring at the darkened ceiling, the echo of Ryan's kiss still heavy on her lips. Her heart raced every time she replayed it, the softness, the heat, the sheer wrongness of it. What did I do? The question looped through her mind like a cruel soundtrack. She turned over in bed, trying to shake the images out. But the harder she tried, the clearer they became. His eyes inches from hers, the feel of his hand on her arm, the desperate beat of her own pulse when she didn't pull away. And David. The thought of her husband struck like lightning. He was still the same man she'd married. Maybe distant. Maybe buried in work. But he had trusted her. He had never doubted her. He had opened their home and his heart to his own cousin, never imagining what could go wrong. And yet, it had. The morning light seeped through the blinds, but it brought no peace. She rose, mechanically going through her routine. Wash face. Brush hair. Brew coffee. Downstairs, Ryan was already at the table. He looked up, expression unreadable. "Morning," he said softly. She didn't respond. Just nodded and walked past him to the kitchen, her back turned. "Emily," his voice was hesitant. "I'm sorry. Last night I shouldn't have." "Don't," she interrupted. Her hands trembled as she clutched her mug. "Don't talk about it." He stood, moving a step closer. I need you to know I didn't plan it. I would never want to hurt you. Or David." Her head snapped toward him. "But you did. And so did I." The air thickened with shame. She stormed out of the kitchen, leaving her untouched coffee behind. The next few days were painfully awkward. Emily avoided being alone in the same room with Ryan. If he entered, she left. If he spoke, she barely acknowledged him. But no matter how much space she put between them physically, the emotional weight didn't budge. At night, when David came home, he was too tired to notice her distance. He'd kiss her on the forehead, ask if there was any dinner left, and collapse into bed with his laptop on his chest. Emily would lie beside him, staring at the man she'd betrayed. And still, she couldn't stop thinking about Ryan. One night, she found herself scrolling through her messages. No new texts. Then suddenly, a message appeared. "Ryan, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. But I can't stop thinking about you. I haven't felt something like that in a long time." She stared at the screen, her heart caught between a strange ache and a burning shame. Delete. She erased the message, but not the feelings. That night, she cried herself to sleep next to a man who had no idea his world had already started to crack. And for the first time, she realized this wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal she couldn't undo. Emily had built walls high, thick ones made of silence and avoidance. She no longer watched movies in the living room. No more shared dinners. No more casual chats. She kept herself busy with errands, cleaning, anything that let her stay away from Ryan. But the walls she built around him did nothing to protect her from what she felt inside. Every time she passed him in the hallway, she could feel his eyes on her. Every time she heard his voice, her pulse betrayed her. She hated herself for it. She hated how her body responded when her heart was begging her to stay loyal. David remained unaware, still too wrapped in his work to see the storm growing in his own home. One night, he came home late again and told Emily he would be flying to New York for a 3-day conference. "I'll be back by Sunday," he said casually. "I know it's short notice. Can you manage everything while I'm gone?" Emily nodded. "Of course." He kissed her cheek and went to pack. She stood frozen at the kitchen counter, the weight of what his absence might bring settling on her like fog. Friday came. David left. And for the first time in days, the house was just the two of them again. Emily kept to herself. She read books, took long baths, and avoided eye contact. But by Saturday night, something in her began to crack. Loneliness has a way of twisting logic into temptation. And when Ryan knocked lightly on her door that evening, holding a glass of wine and an old movie DVD, she didn't say no. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. The silence between them was heavy, but it wasn't angry. It was cautious. Halfway through the film, Ryan finally spoke. "I miss talking to you." Emily didn't respond. "I know what we did was wrong. I hate myself for it. But pretending it didn't happen, It's making it worse. She looked at him, eyes tired. Then what do you want from me, Ryan? I don't know, he said honestly. I just know I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. The pain in his voice reached a part of her she'd tried to shut down. I've been trying to forget it, she whispered. But I can't either. Their eyes met. A beat passed. Then another. And in that beat, they gave in. He moved closer. She didn't stop him. Their kiss was different this time, deeper, fueled by tension and aching. His hands found her waist. Her fingers tangled in his shirt. The walls fell, one after the other, until all that was left between them was heat, breath, and betrayal. They didn't speak when it ended. They just lay in silence, both knowing the line they'd crossed could never be uncrossed. Later, as Emily sat alone in the bathroom, wrapped in a towel and shame, she looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red. Her heart was numb. She had wanted to feel alive again. But this felt like dying slowly from the inside out. The next morning felt different. The sun poured through the windows, but its warmth did nothing to thaw the frost in Emily's chest. She avoided Ryan. Again. Only this time, it wasn't because of guilt alone, it was because what happened between them hadn't just been a mistake. It had been a choice. And that made everything worse. David was due to return that evening. Emily cleaned obsessively, wiping down counters, vacuuming the rugs twice, scrubbing the sink until her hands ached. She wanted to erase the scent of what happened. The memory. The truth. But truth has a way of seeping through the cracks. When David arrived, he smiled and hugged her as if nothing had changed. His arms wrapped around her, and for a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what life might have been like if she had just waited. If she had held on. If she hadn't crossed the line. But the moment passed quickly. She couldn't eat that night. She pushed her food around the plate. David didn't notice. He was too busy talking about flight delays and keynote speeches. Then, as they were getting ready for bed, Emily heard a buzzing sound. David's phone. A notification. He picked it up and frowned. She froze. "What's this?" he asked. Her heart stopped. He turned the screen toward her. A message. From Ryan. She couldn't see all of it, but the preview alone was enough to destroy everything. "Ryan, I shouldn't have let it go that far. I'm sorry for hurting her, and you." David's brows furrowed in confusion. What's he talking about? Emily's mouth went dry. Her hands trembled. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. David stepped forward. "Emily? What is this?" She stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "I need to tell you something." The words felt like knives as they left her mouth. She confessed. Not everything at first. Just the kiss. The moment on the couch. The blurred lines. But David knew there was more. He stared at her, shaking his head slowly, disbelief painted across his face. "Tell me the truth. All of it." Emily broke. She told him everything. The night he was in New York. The way she didn't say no. The moment she chose someone else instead of fighting for what they had. David didn't scream. He didn't cry. He just walked to the door, grabbed his keys, and left. Emily stood in the middle of the room, her legs weak, her lungs barely holding breath. She had always feared that moment, the one where truth came to light. But nothing had prepared her for the sound of the door slamming shut. It was louder than any argument. Louder than any scream. It was the sound of a world falling apart. And she was the one who had lit the match. Emily didn't sleep that night. She sat on the living room couch, still wearing the same clothes from earlier, her phone clutched in her trembling hands. She checked it over and over, hoping, praying for a message from David. Anything. But there was nothing. Silence had never felt so loud. When the sun rose, its light made the house feel cruelly bright, like it was mocking her. The same home where she once felt comfort now suffocated her with shame. Ryan came downstairs around mid-morning. He stood in the doorway, hesitant, remorse clear in his eyes. "Did he find out?" he asked softly. Emily didn't answer at first. Then she gave a small nod, her voice barely audible. He left. Ryan stepped forward, concern etched across his face. "I'm sorry, Emily." "I never wanted." "Don't," she cut him off. "Please, don't make this worse." He lowered his eyes, his jaw tightening. I care about you. I really do. I never meant to, no, she said firmly. Whatever this was, it has to end. Right now. But there's no but. Her voice cracked. You need to leave. Ryan paused for a long moment, nodding silently. He walked back upstairs without another word. Within the hour, he had packed his bags and quietly slipped out the door, closing it gently behind him. The silence returned, heavier than ever. Emily didn't know where David had gone. He wasn't answering texts or calls. She sent message after message, apologizing, begging, explaining. But all were met with nothing but read receipts, and then eventually nothing at all. That evening, she called his sister, desperate to find out if he was okay. All she said was, he's staying at a hotel. He's not ready to talk to you. Emily collapsed on the bed and sobbed until her chest ached. In the days that followed, her parents came to visit. David had told them. Of course he had. Their disappointment was harder to bear than anger. Her mother looked at her with a quiet sadness. You had everything, Emily. Why would you throw it away? I was lonely, she whispered. I didn't feel loved anymore. Then you talk. You don't cheat. Her father didn't say a word the entire visit. Not even goodbye. And the neighbors, they knew something was wrong. Whispers started. People stared a little longer when she walked to her car. The perfect picture of her suburban life had cracked wide open for the world to see. And she had no one to blame but herself. She deleted Ryan's number. She blocked him. The temptation to talk to him had vanished, burned to ash by the fire of consequences. Her nights were sleepless. Her days were long and cold. The betrayal she'd committed didn't just cost her marriage, it cost her dignity, her reputation, and the trust of the man who once looked at her like she was his whole world. Now, all that remained was regret. And regret is the kind of pain that never lets you forget. 3 weeks had passed since David walked out the door, and still, Emily hadn't heard his voice. Not even once. Every day, she checked her phone first thing in the morning. Every night, she fell asleep clutching it in her hand, hoping for even a single word that said, I'm willing to talk. But it never came. The silence had become a second skin. She moved through life in quiet routines, waking up, making coffee she barely sipped, sitting on the edge of the bed staring at the wall, and wandering the empty house as if searching for someone who'd already made it clear they weren't coming back. Then, one Sunday afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Her heart leapt. She ran to open it, and there he was. David. He looked tired. Older. As if the betrayal had added years to his face. But he was there. She couldn't speak. Her throat closed up the moment their eyes met. Can I come in? He asked softly. She nodded and stepped aside. They sat in the living room, the same couch where it had all begun. The same couch where her heart had turned left instead of right. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Finally, David broke the silence. I needed time, he said. To think. To breathe. I understand, she replied, her voice shaking. I was angry, he continued. But mostly, I was broken. Because the person I trusted most looked me in the eye every day, knowing what she'd done. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm so sorry, David. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know how deeply I regret everything. It wasn't love, it was a moment of weakness. A moment I'll pay for the rest of my life. He looked at her, eyes glistening. You didn't just break my trust. You broke us. And I don't know if that's something I can ever fully repair. Emily nodded slowly. I'm not here to ask for a second chance. I know I don't deserve one. I just needed to say it to your face, that I'm sorry. That I loved you, and I still do. And that I let the emptiness in me ruin what we had. David stood up, pacing slowly. I haven't made any decisions, he admitted. But I'm not ready to come back. I wouldn't ask you to, she said. But thank you for coming. For hearing me. He nodded. As he turned to leave, he looked back once more. We were good once, weren't we? Emily smiled sadly. Yeah, we really were. The door closed behind him gently. Not like the last time, when it slammed. This time, it was quiet. Careful. Like maybe there was still a tiny, fragile thread connecting them. Emily sat back down on the couch, staring at the TV. The same movie she and Ryan had watched weeks ago was playing again, this time alone. The screen flickered in the dim room. Her hand touched her chest. This was what truth looked like. Messy. Painful. Real. But it was hers now. And maybe, just maybe, healing could begin. 83.